Hey everybody and welcome back. Today we are revisiting something I always love doing, and it's been quite a long time, working with Karma on doing doing some just kind of tinkering with Jace. Um, we've been talking a little bit and trying to figure out like what's an interesting deck to do. Like, is there one that we both don't have a ton of experience with? As everyone knows on my channel, I never played Jace. I was like traumatized during um, the Jace meta when that was a thing. But Karma was down to do it and like has also had some really, I think, very competitive ideas for a red splash for Jace. So that's where we're starting today. And we're just going to be kind of building the deck together. I have plenty to learn, and I think probably Karma's gotten more reps on Jace than I have. And I think it'll just be fun to get into it. So, how you feeling, Karma? How are things going?
Oh, well, so I was thinking, doing like a dragon deck, like Dragonic Transformation, kind of, since I saw the card, I was like, you know what, that I need to figure out how to, get it into a deck somehow. And my thinking is maybe with a Jace deck where he's very controlly, he can control, early game enough where he can actually reach the Dragonic transformation with either his ability or even before he uses his ability, and that would make all of the dragons cost one, no matter what they are.
It's a pretty sweet card. I actually had made, well, I had made another account, and I think it's like in one of the first games that you play, you use Dragonic Transformation or whatever it's called, like to win the game. And like it just reminded me how sweet of a card that is, and I'm like, man, I wish that could work. And I think so when we were just checking in before starting the video, um, like I had played against Jace splashing red. I don't know if it had Draconic Transformation in it, but like it had a bunch of sweepers, and it just really controlled the board against aggro and mid range. And so like I do feel like there is potential with a red splash. So I'm interested to just see how it ends up.
Yeah, so I figured, I would try to build this deck with you and see if maybe you have a little bit more insight on how we might be able to build it to make it actually work. I mean, I didn't have that
Hopefully,
much success with it.
yeah.
uh, I tried, but I didn't have that much success.
When you
Um,
remember playing those games, Karma, was there anything that stood out as like not working so well, or like something you felt like you needed to make the deck smooth?
um, I almost felt like I couldn't I couldn't like get enough blockers and stuff out on the field, or I would run out of cards quickly
Got it.
and have nothing to play. And even like I was running rooftop laboratory, and that sometimes just didn't help at all.
Yeah, I go back and forth. I think so. Obviously, the blue white the Lab Maniac Jace was running Tolarian Academy for Alarm Bell for Isochron, stuff like that. That's not what we're doing, so it doesn't really make sense probably to play Tolarian. Playing a basic land, although it guarantees your land drops, right, and you are kind of scaling up, you're a control deck. It's good to have the land drops, but also, I could see Rooftop Laboratory allowing you, so you're drawing the cards, it's chipping away at your passive ability, so you get it sooner. Um, but it is tough if you're going to run, I guess, like higher curve cards, because it can really disrupt the mana, the late game spells that have a higher mana cost. Um, but I don't really know. I feel like both Basic Land and Rooftop Laboratory have their benefits and drawbacks to them.
Yeah. So I'm not really sure which one to run. Um, like I said, I didn't Rooftop Laboratory didn't really help me out, but then again, when you do run out of cards, it can help you
My
at least.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. My gut is telling me if the deck ends up with potentially Lava Wave, potentially Blasphemous Act, um, if we've got enough early game stuff to do, and we are really kind of going big, um, my gut is to go with the basic island, but I don't know if that's where we're going to end up. So maybe we could kind of go back to the lands later on and
Yeah, probably.
see
I
how we
think I
feel.
think we should.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so the
Jace
signature
signature.
cards,
Yep.
I would include them.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah, they've
Very
always
good.
been very efficient. I mean, like Repulse can be really, really good. Remand, although people you can play around it, and I often talk about that in when I play against Jace. It's still a good card, and Jace's Apprentice can really shut down a lot of, especially the smaller, aggressive decks. Even mid-range decks like Garrick, it's a pretty formidable blocker. Um, so
Oh yeah, yeah. She can come out with quite a bit of health
yeah,
and ward, so they can't really like just get rid of her right away.
exactly. Yeah, if the card didn't have Ward, I don't think we'd play it, but the fact that it does is definitely excellent.
Mhm. All right. So would you play wizard?
I think I would. I think that with it's hard, right? Because like against aggro decks, it's not great, but it is just such an efficient card or like class. Um, the familiar is relevant to you, the signature spell is relevant, and then obviously elemental mastery is an alternate win condition for the deck. Um, I think it's good enough. Like, is it going to be tough against some of the aggro decks? We'll see, depending on our build. But I think you get a lot of mileage out of the School of the Wizard.
Yeah, I would say with Jace it's very synergetic.
Yeah.
All right. Thought Provoker, Mana Constrictor, Rune Shell Crab.
Yeah. Thought Provoker got taken up, right, from a zero cost, I think? Or was it always. Or it used to be
I
one
think it
cost with three charges? Is that it?
it got up nerfed
Yeah.
somehow, some way.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a pretty efficient card. I'm a really big fan of Mana Constrictor and Rune Shell Crab. I mean, Crab just helps you live in the early game, and Constrictor, I've always been kind of impressed by it when you're playing decks that really need tempo. And it really can. It's a blocker that's 1 mana for 2/2. It's a fine rate. And making something come down a turn later, because that's essentially what it says, um, I think does really do a lot of work in a deck like Jace.
Oh yeah, it can
Yeah.
definitely.
I've seen people play Disorient in Jace versions, but and I can see how that's a little bit better than like a 3/3 because obviously it gives it permanently -3 -0, but I don't know. I don't know if you need it necessarily, but I think it's worth potentially thinking about.
Disorient.
Yeah, I'm not super high on the
Well,
card, but
we could throw one in there,
okay. I feel like that's pretty
or
reasonable.
we could throw two in there and then see where we're at later.
Yeah, yeah. I think I like one. I like one. I don't know
Mm.
that I want two off the bat, but I think it
And
helps with the aggro matchup a little bit, definitely.
yeah. So would you put Jarring Insight in there where it does let you draw a card?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I've been a lot more down on the card even when I was running it in RAL, which I think had some pretty clear synergy. I think you probably don't want to run Jarring Insight if you're playing a class card because it
Right.
can potentially mess you up. It's not the hugest deal, so I'm not a huge fan of it. So I'm okay leaving that out for now.
Yeah. Um, I mean, Delver of the Secret can be okay. Potentially, it's a one cost for a 2/2 flying.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not huge on it for Jace, but yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad card. I've also seen, although I don't know if I agree with it, people playing spawning Arowana as like a way to just chump block early and save your life, but I really don't like playing this card personally.
I think there's better uh, better cards probably. Uh,
Yeah.
Arowana is very good, like in the Gideon deck. I've seen that.
Yeah, there's upside to playing in Gideon. In this deck it's straight up fodder to just die, which is not that attractive to me.
Okay, so I think we're looking more towards higher cost reds, right?
Yeah, I mean like maybe you can make an argument for shock, but I just don't think shock matters in the format right now. I think you just
Yeah.
want stuff that can deal with, other cards that are bigger. Because you've got Crab and Constrictor and Disorient to deal with
Right.
those sorts of cards.
Yeah, the early game stuff. Anything here? Well, unsummon probably.
Yeah, Unsummon's always been pretty decent with this kind of deck because you're just buying time and setting up. So, and I kind of like it in the format right now. I mean, if you think about Garrick and potentially Davriel or even Nissa, like it can be pretty helpful to buy yourself a turn by unsummoning something big or something early on that you can't deal with.
Right.
So, yeah, that's probably all I would be considering from that. Yeah, that page of cards.
So this one, at least two of them I would be considering.
Yep, I think I
Um,
know which two.
and Anticipate and Scepter.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, for those who
Very good cards for
may
Jace.
not have realized this, when you play Jace, whenever you draft a card, that counts towards your passive. Because drafting is essentially you're drawing a card, so it helps whittle down your ability to go crazy with your ultimate ability.
Absolutely. Now, would you put Negate in or Zender Split?
I think negate is good. I don't know if you need two, but I think I would be pretty happy to run at least one negate.
All right, hold on 1 second.
Oh, sure.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good.
So yeah, Negate or Zender Split.
I like a one of for negate, probably. Um, I mean, we're not seeing as much like Lava Wave these days, but it's good against Wild Speaker Fury from Garrick. It can be good against Teferi if you're playing against him. I think a one of at the very least is pretty good. And Zinder Split I really do like quite a bit. It's the 2/4 for 2. You don't care about the parity that you're giving your opponent a card because it's just digging you deeper and getting you closer to your ability. Um, yeah, I like it.
Awesome. Another one that I kind of thought about was Prodigal Student,
Yeah,
where they after you play a spell you get +1. But I don't know if that's more like a Ral style than a J style.
I think it does tend to be better with what Ralph's doing because you're playing cheaper spells and sort of chaining them together. Um, but I see the argument. Like it can do a bit of work. I guess if we think about how we're curving out, right? Ideally, we've got our one drop creature. On two, we're trying to do Anticipate or Isochron, or maybe holding up Remand or playing Zinder Split, and then by three. The thing is with Prodigal Student, you want to be playing multiple spells a turn, and it's
Right.
pretty unlikely that we're doing that until we get our spells off of Isochron.
And that's probably a better Jace card anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Jace's Apprentice definitely does a bit of a better job overall.
All right. Would you consider a Lore Keeper?
So I think Lore Keeper is a reasonable early game card, but I actually don't think we need it. Like I'm looking at our early game, and I think I'm pretty happy with what we have so far. Could we maybe swap a lore keeper for an unsummon potentially, or like a disorient? I could see that, but I don't love the creature.
Right. And another one I did try was the Winter Grip Mage.
Yeah, Mage got buffed, but I'm still not impressed personally with it.
Yeah, I don't. Oh, sorry. I don't think it did all that well when I tried it.
No, no, definitely not.
Anything else here?
Um, no, I mean, I think there were versions that tried to fit in Gutfire Devil, but I don't really think you need to go that route. Um, most of these other cards are just pretty typical red aggressive cards. You're not really splashing for that. I think we're mostly going to be looking at late game. Well, aside from maybe Pyroclasm, I think we're going to be looking at higher cost red cards.
Yes, sir. All right, here. I would look at probably three cards.
Hmm.
Three cards here. I would look at um, Icy Manipulator to, stun an enemy creature. Um, Figment because we do draft, uh, with the Scepter and Anticipate, um, and that can make it cost 0.
Yep.
And then Divination to draw 2 cards.
Yeah, I think those are the three to consider. Um, I think Icy Manipulator is better if we're playing Tolarian Academy, just because it's a little bit more efficient coming in on 2 mana. Um, and honestly, Bag of Tricks also got buffed to be 2 mana for 3 charges. So it would be cost 1 mana if we were going to play Tolarian Academy. But I don't really think that's what we're trying to do necessarily, or like that
Right.
it's that critical to have something like a manipulator or artifact package. But I really do like Figment in as like an early blocker. Like I'd much prefer to run that card than Arowana because it's going to trade for something, and it kind of does the same thing.
Right.
It's just a
So would
very.
you put 2 up or 1 up?
I think I would put two. I think that the card buys time very efficiently, and I'm not upset to put it in the deck with the way that things are right now. I'm kind of thinking about this deck in terms of how am I living against Garrick, um, and a 3/2 Figment is going to block what they're doing. So, um,
Right.
So divination, I I mean, obviously it's very synergistic with what Jace is doing. I'm like inclined to say one, but I'm not huge on playing both. Like I feel like the first
So
divination you play is great, but then the second one I'm not so sure.
the problem I have with divination is I don't really find like the time to play it because it costs three.
Yeah, I feel you
And
there.
if it was two for two cards, I would consider it. But I don't know if I would consider it for three. It to me it costs too much for two cards.
I agree. Yeah. I, I mean,
I
if
mostly find myself holding it in my hand.
yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. I mean, even just thinking about it since we're splashing red, right? If we were playing, uh, the bag, the beast artifact, like you get
Bag of
three.
tricks.
Yeah, you get three cards off of that for 2 mana. Technically, you're not drawing from your deck, but in terms of efficiency, it is more efficient than divination. So, um,
Right.
yeah, I agree with you. I don't really think the deck needs to play a card like this. Like Jace, to me, gets enabled by draft spells and gets enabled by his signature spells with Remand and Repulse. Right? It's like draw a card is tacked onto a real card. Um, and then when you're drafting spells with Isochron, with Anticipate, right, you're getting card selection, which is much better than just drawing two cards off the top, I think.
Right.
And it costs less. So
So another one that I actually thought about was Eerie Prankster
yeah,
because it does have a draft added to it, but the only problem with it is um, they get added to your deck. So I don't know if we would want to add more to our deck.
yeah, I see why, Karma, that you'd be interested in this card, and I think it's reasonable. Um, but I agree with you, like the hesitancy about the fact that it's not putting that spell into your hand, it's putting it in your deck, is a significant drawback. It might not feel like it, like when just for our viewers, like who are thinking about evaluating the card, but just putting like cards, even if you're choosing them into your deck rather than drawing the card, um, is a significant downside. And it's a 3/2 sneak, right? Like the sneak basically means nothing because you're going to be using it to trade off. It's not a card that's going to end the game for you, right? So it's essentially 3/2 for 3, block something and die, you put two spells in your deck. And when you think about it like that, I think the answer is it's probably not good enough.
Right,
Is
and you
kind of
don't
how I
even
feel.
know if you're gonna use them.
Right. Exactly right. You just might get some brick spells that just do nothing. So
Right. Um, I wouldn't play anything here.
agreed.
Now, Cerulean Dragon, with what we're trying to do is draw, is great synergy with this deck.
I agree. They buffed him, from a 4 mana 2/2 to a 3 mana 1/2. Comes down a turn sooner. Losing one power doesn't really matter because the toughness is more relevant and you're drawing cards earlier because it's coming down sooner. I really like it as a you have to answer this blue card in this deck because it will just get out of hand. I generally like that you can now do that at a cheaper rate.
It gets out of hand quick too.
Yeah, it takes like one turn cycle really in a deck like this to just pump it 2/3 power, and then you're dealing with a 3/4/4/5 flyer that will just keep scaling up. So
And I think there's only one other spell slinger that's probably a better choice for this card, and that would probably be Yanling with her passive ability.
Yeah. Yep. I've seen it in RAL as well. Um, I think it's decent there. But yeah, I like it a lot in Jace. I tend to think that it's a pretty good card.
Yeah. So you said Pyroclasm?
So, so we're looking at it. We got 24 cards. We've got 6 red slots. So we're coming down to the wire. Obviously, we can change things, but I really like the core of what we have. So I'm trying to think of what are these red cards going to do for us. And when I've played against Jace with red, um, I think one of the benefits is you get access to these board sweepers. And I I think thinking about the format, Pyroclasm will be a dead card if you're playing against control. That is the truth. But I think it's very, very hard to deal with, especially from an aggro deck. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that against Garrick, it's pretty relevant as well because they're often trading their toughness to do more damage, and it's pretty
Yeah.
easy to set up a Pyroclasm against them.
So I would consider two of these cards. I would consider this card.
Reckless Strike. Okay. Tell me what you think about Reckless Strike.
So, you can get rid of pretty much any creature mid range or aggro, and you're not doing anything to your creatures. But I think probably Pyroclasm would be a better thing because it can potentially take out multiple cards, including our own.
Yeah, yeah. And that is the downside, right? Like I don't want to pretend that Pyroclasm is just a free spell because it's not. It definitely has that drawback. And Reckless Strike, I actually like when you were talking about it, Karma. Like one of the things I think is interesting about it is it's random. And why is that relevant? It works around Ward, and
Yes.
a very common play pattern in Garrick, although it's specific, is to trade off some creatures, play an ooze, put your axe on your ooze, make it a 9/6, right? And it's got ward
Mm-hmm.
after something has died. So actually, Reckless Strike, if it's the only thing on the board, answers that very efficiently. Um,
I mean, even if it isn't the only thing on the board, it still has a chance to hit that card.
yeah, yeah, and I think the reason I like Pyroclasm a little bit better is obviously it hits multiple targets, but you know, what it can allow you to do is you can really leverage the small little blockers that you have early, trading off damage into them, knowing that you can get Pyroclasm or being able to craft your playing around Pyroclasm. It can be really punishing for your opponent. Um,
Yeah.
they might guess with you splashing red that that's coming, but that's probably the first red card they'll see. So you really get to kind of hide with Jace, like if you're trying to engineer some sort of board sweeper. Um, but just to give a nod to playing in tournaments that might have best of 3 with a sideboard, I think Reckless Strike would be a really great sideboard card. Um,
Yep.
because it, like we were talking about now, it can really be quite punishing for certain interactions. But yeah, I'm interested to try 2 Pyroclasm. I generally think in a vacuum it's going to be pretty decent for us.
Yeah. It'll probably be better than Reckless Strike. So another thing would be, you know, Shell Game and Reckless Strike. But um or just Shell Game in general is a good one too.
Yeah, I
To answer
uh-huh.
it'll it'll answer like the big death shadows and stuff that we might run into.
That is true. That is true. I've kind of come down on Shell Game only because of Garrick. That Shell Game can be good against him, but also like it is annoying that you're spotting them like a 2/4 or a 3/3 or a 3/4 or like a
Right.
3/2 creature, right? Because they get to make use of the turtle afterward. I my
5 times.
Yeah, yeah. My thing is like if we want an effect like this, I'd actually prefer to play Pixie. Um, because at least with Pixie Trickster, you get a 3/1 body, and yes, they get a 3/3 that they can pump, but like that's actually I think just better because you get a body out of it. You're not just giving them a worse creature. You're giving them a worse creature, and you have a 3/1 that can deal with it. Um,
Right.
so that's kind of my argument to play Pixie over Shell Game. Although in this deck, and there's a little bit of anti synergy with like Shell Gaming something and Pyroclasming later. It's not a huge concern, but I think I would probably pass on Shell Game for now.
Okay. So here we are, Pixie.
So I do generally like Pixie right now. I think it's one of the best ways to answer Death Shadow, Cough of Head, Titans. It's just a very very efficient card that way. I I, I don't know how necessary it is. Um, it's a very efficient card. I think it's often underrated, but do we need it? I guess is the question. So right now we have nothing in our deck besides Remand, Repulse, and I think that's kind of it to delay some sort of like big creature, right? Um,
From summon.
and unsummon, right? So we do have access to unsummon. Um, I don't know. I don't. I like Pixie Trickster a lot. I don't know if there's necessarily room in the deck for it, but I would not be opposed to playing at least one. I feel like one is a reasonable thing to do.
I would say one, and then maybe get rid of Disorient.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I'm not super married to that card because we have a lot of early game stuff to do. So
Right. And I think we want two red. I mean, or four red cards to finish the stack off. Right.
most likely we don't have to, but I think it's worth. Like we've gotten all that we can, I think, out of blue for the most part. Like a lot of early game interaction, a lot of efficient spells, a lot of ways bridging us into the mid game. And so now it's kind of about okay, how do we utilize this red splash? What makes it good? Pyroclasm helps us, but there's probably more as well.
So I did try playing Firemind Bolt because of the last part, draw a card.
Oh yeah, I definitely get why you might want to play this card, and I don't think it's necessarily the wrong move. I think right now with where things are, it's probably a little too underpowered for what you're getting. Um, but
Yeah, I was feeling that.
in an aggressive format though, like if we were constantly seeing aggressive decks, which didn't play these huge cards like Krav and Kothafed and like
Hmm.
stuff like that, I think Firemind Bolt would be a lot better. But
Yes, sir.
how did it feel for you though, Karma, when you were playing with it?
Um, I felt myself not really like it wasn't the hype that I was hoping for. It was
Gotcha.
very underwhelming.
Yeah,
It got me
I
my
could see
draw.
that.
About it.
Yeah, I mean, if it was cheaper, it would be better, definitely. And I don't think we're gonna play it, but I have always been really a big fan of Mistraven.
Hmm.
and it's okay right now. I don't. It's not really like that all that good. Um, but I think it's a card that was always fairly decent in Jace because you get a body, it's evasive, you get to bounce something. But I think probably
I,
on summon is more efficient for us in this kind of deck.
I really wish Miss Raven costed 4.
Oh yeah, if it costs 4, I think yeah. Then we're maybe even playing it over Pixie Trickster. So
Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
yeah, there's so I we could honorable mention to Infernal Broker. This was a card that I truly never thought about, but I did play against it with Jace. Um, what it can do when it was, I would say mostly against Nissa, um, and Death Shadow, like, is it does replace their highest cost card, right, with like something else, like just a random thing. Um,
yep.
and Infernal Broker could kind of hose things. I'm, st- I don't think it's probably good enough. But it is kind of an interesting card. I don't know if you've played
It
with it, Karma.
definitely, it's definitely ruined my day a couple times.
That's exactly what I would expect from the card if it happens.
It took out my Death Shadow and it gave me the 1/3 mil card,
Yep.
and I was like, wow, that was awesome.
I would also say honorable mention to Cage Match. It is a
Hmm.
little too costly, I think, but in a meta, if you're playing against things like Krav, Ooze, Death Shadow, stuff like that, um, maybe having two giant creatures fight each other is something you want. Um, but
It's definitely very good.
yeah, but I think the real card I keep coming back to, and I haven't played a ton with it. I actually don't even have it. I don't think is Blasphemous Act, um, which is the 6 mana sort of pseudo sweeper in red.
Look at that, I got one.
Nice. Yeah, I think I might have one. I'm not really sure. Um, so I just had not thought about this card very much, and then last season I played against it as Nissa, and like a couple other decks, and it does a pretty good Red Wrath impression on 6 mana. Like it usually is killing most of your opponent's board, and the fact that you're playing to like deal damage to your opponent's creatures with your little blockers and stuff like that, um, it can be quite effective paired with your ability to bounce other stuff and like manipulate the board and out tempo your opponent. So I would love to try playing the Blasphemous Act. I think it might be good.
Yes, sir. It uh, it definitely can do work, right?
Yeah, I think people don't really play like that's a card that you can be playing. So, um, and as we get up here, I've
So
seen Jace versions play clear the field as well. I don't know how you feel about that card.
I like this card also.
Oh, Born from Lightning. Okay.
I played it a couple times in random decks or, drafting it. And I mean, I like it just like I liked the Draconic transformation.
Interesting. I mean, I'm open to trying it. I never played with that card, but it is kind of an interesting thing. It obviously synergizes with Wizard class as well, right? You'll get your 5/4 after you've played Elemental Mastery. Um,
And it can't be countered.
can't be countered, which I think is relevant in certainly a few matchups. Um, yeah, yeah, we could give it a shot.
I put one in there.
Then we come to
And
the
then,
end game.
so now we got to figure out how many lava waves and how many draconic transformations?
Yeah. I
I mean,
People may
we only have room
disagree.
for two.
Yeah, people may disagree, but I think one lava wave is correct. I often do not think that the second one is needed or that impactful in your deck or in any deck, quite frankly. Like I think it's not even that good in the meta right now with Death Shadow and Kothafed running around. So
Right.
that's why I think Blasphemous Act actually at times is strictly better, um, because you can distribute damage across other creatures and then Blasphemous Act, and it's a little bit earlier. But of course, it's includes your board too. So, I mean, as we wrap up this deck, yeah, that I'm down to try. Like my sneaking suspicion, like I think the cards I'm unsure of are like the Pixie Trickster and the 7 mana spell. Um, like those are the slots where I'm like, okay, maybe we would switch them around, but I'm kind of interested to try this. Like I feel like this is an interesting mix of
So
late game.
what what would you switch Pixie for?
So I think Pixie could be. Trying to think of what are the other best blue cards.
Or would you keep Pixie and take Born from Lightning out and add like another draconic transformation?
I think I really like Pixie the more I'm thinking about it. Like I do think it's a really nice answer in the deck. I would be down to move forward with this list and see how it fares.
Keep it how it is.
Yeah, yeah. I really like maybe you would switch like a Pixie to a negate. Like I could see that being decent, but I actually think Pixie is way better in the format right now. That's kind of how I feel.
Yep. I think we need something, at least something,
Yeah,
to, answer the big, huge creatures that are going to be thrown in our faces.
I agree. And we can delay certainly. You know, we got Remand, we got Repulse, stuff like that. We've got some of these sweepers, but um, yeah. But I think Pixie is just sometimes like the exact answer you need, and it's
Right.
really efficient for what you get out of it. Um, yeah, I like this. I like this list. I've been curious about red as a splash for Jace for a while. Like I think, although I like Hellion as a closer, a way of closing out the game, I really want to try a Draconic Transformation because I'm interested to see if it is competitive. Yes, the update.
Well, so for the viewers, I did have another deck that I had made previously, and that's what led into trying the Dragonic transformation, trying to make it better. The deck was actually called Let's Get Dragons. So we remade it, made it better, put 2.0 after it.
Heck yeah. I think it's a sweet list. I really am interested to see how it can do. So I think we'll sign off here for today, just for the deck building portion. Um, but yeah, thanks you so much, Karma, for joining for this, and I think we'll also obviously get some gameplay footage and get that worked out. But let's get some dragons. Let's see how it all goes.
Yeah, and I'm very thankful for you to give me the opportunity to be on your channel as well.
Of course, man. It's always my pleasure. Um, so we'll definitely catch you next time, and I'm interested to see how everything shakes out. This is a really good learning experience for me because I really have not played much with Jace, but I'm starting to feel like I kind of understand a little bit more of what a Jace, like the core of a Jace deck is doing, and I like the basic land. I think in a deck like this, it makes sense. Um, so until next time.